How you doing, guys? We're picking up where we left off. Last time we made a projectile with a type of particle effect to make it look like it's moving. And this time we're going to actually make the object move across the screen. So, your object should start at the 0, 0 position. And if you can see here, I need to show you some stuff so we can kind of get an understanding of what's happening. I turned on a grid. Let's see, and rulers. So if you push R, it turns on the rulers. If you push G, it turns on the grid there. So this is the 0, 0 position for our projectile. You can see that, okay, so this is the X coordinates here, the horizontal. And if you go to the right, they are positive. If you go to the left, they are negative. If you go up, they are negative, and if you go down, they're positive. To me, it would seem to be the opposite, but this is how the engine does it, so this is how we need to understand it. Okay. So, first thing I want to do is I want to put this guy in the center of the screen, but I don't want to I don't want to move him there. I want to code him to move there. I want to tell it whenever I push the play button, take my object and move it to the center of the screen. So let's get started on doing that, and that's going to make a lot of progress for us making this guy move across the screen. And that's our main goal today, is to make our projectile move from one side of the screen to the other like we would think a projectile should move. So select on your topmost node your sprite and add a script. Now make sure when you add your script you put them into a place that makes sense. This is my online tutorial series, so I'm putting it in that folder. And here we go. We have our sprite here, and we have some functions here. So we have a function. This function, the ready function, it plays one time when the object is first created or is ready. Okay. So in order to actually move it, like we were saying, it's currently at the 0, 0 position. It looks like we want to put it somewhere around the, I don't know, 300 and 500 position. 500 on the X and about 300 on the Y. So let's shoot for that, 500, 300. Let's shoot for that. So that should be somewhere near the center of the screen. Let's go back to our script here. So how you do that is you need to access those positions. So in the top right, if you're selected on sprite, you can click inspector. There we go. Click on the sprite. And then in the inspector, you can see on the right hand side you have node transform, and then this has our position. I'm going to show you how to access this position, because as you can see right now it's 0, and if I grab it and move it, it moves all over, and then those numbers change. So we want to move it somewhere like here, like, I don't know, something like that, 500, 300, like I was saying. So you can see those numbers changed. We want to be able to access these numbers through code. If you hover over the top of it, you'll see the word property pop up, and that tells you how to access it. And we access it with the word position. So here I'm going to type position, and then first I want to set its X position, so I'm going to say .x is equal to 500. Then I'm going to say position .y is equal to 300. Now I've tried to set those all at once, so let me not get distracted here. I'll just show you what happens here. So it's going to take the X position, it's going to set it to 500, then it's going to take the Y position, it's going to set it to 300. So let's push play, and now you can see our our projectile is now in the center of the screen. But if we look at the actual scene, it starts in the top left. Okay, so we moved it with some code. We didn't click and drag it. We told it with code. Now I think that you would do like position. Oops. Is equal to, and then something like this, 500 comma 300. To me, in my brain, that looks like what I'm trying to do, but if you actually run that, it's not going to let you do that. It's just going to say error. And then I've tried things like .xy. I don't think it lets you do that either. Stop, run. Yeah, won't let you do that. You actually have to do you have to like make a variable. So you could do variable pose is equal to a vector2, which is saying it's giving it two variables, and then the first one would be the x and y. So variables vector2, and then the first one would be your x coordinate and your next one would be your y coordinate. So then it would understand that position is equal to two numbers. So then I'm going to take this word pose and I'm going to put it here. So let me get rid of this xy thing because that doesn't do anything. I would do POS, and it's going to understand that. We just haven't given it anything yet. So let's do pose is equal to vector2 500 comma 300. Okay. Now it can understand that. I guess if you put this whole section here in there, so like if you moved that in there, let's just run this and you'll see that it should work. So that was the same as dividing it up into the x position and the y position. I think you could even take this part and put it here, and it's going to understand that as well. Okay. Okay, cool. So basically we've learned how to move this thing around in two different ways, two separate ways. Setting the x by itself, setting the y by itself, or setting them both simultaneously. Another example of this vector2 thing here is there's also, let's say 3D pose. Can I use a number? I don't think I can. Maybe I can. I don't know. Yeah, I should be able to, right? Yeah, pose 3D. Let's say this is a 3D position. How did I delete that? I don't know. Okay, so this one, you would want to make this one a vector3, and a vector3 accepts three numbers. Vector3, and that would be an x, y, and a z. Useful. And then again, you could have vector 4, which would also do the same thing, except for it would accept 4. I don't know if it goes past vector 4. It probably does. I don't know. Okay, so I digress. So we've changed our position, and we know that this guy here runs one time. As soon as it starts, it takes this and it moves it to the position which is the center of our screen, which is 500, 300. Now we want this to happen multiple times. We want our object to start in one place and move to the other side. So I'm going to make a variable, and this is going to be position underscore x, and I'm going to set it to 0. Actually, you know what? I'm going to set it to 500. I'm going to start it out at 500. So I'm going to say position x. So all I've done is replaced that x with this position x. So that is technically the exact same thing we just had. Now we're making a new function. This is a function that you should have seen before, the process function or physics process delta. So this function runs every frame. This runs every frame of the game. Okay. That function is going to run every frame of the game. So when it starts out, it's going to put it in the center at 500, 300. And then what I'm going to want to do, every single frame, I want to make it move to the right. And that would be in the positive x direction. So let's take position x, and every frame, let's just add a little bit more to it, so it moves that way. So every frame, position x is going to get greater by 1. And then let's set our new position every time as well. So then we're going to want to do this just again, right? So this is the first frame. It runs one time and it puts us in the center. And then every frame after that, it's going to add 1 to the x, and it's going to move us to the right, just continuously to the right. First it's going to start at 500, the first frame, and then it's going to go 501, 502, 503, 504, and it's just going to keep going to the right. Let's play this. So there it goes. It's just moving to the right. If I wanted it to move to the left, which is a negative direction, I could just change it -1. So instead of going to the right, it's going to go to the left. Now it's moving to the left. Cool. Exactly what we wanted to do. Our object is moving, but this is not super helpful. I mean, hopefully this is the part that helps you understand what's happening here. This thing runs every frame of the game. This frame runs once. This sets its position one time. So by contrast, this is going to set its position just over and over. And this adding 1 to position x is going to tell it to move to the right just a little bit. Now, we're going to have a cannon that is going to actually decide where does it start. And if you guys remember last week, we were talking about functions, defining a function. That's what this part is. You can see func, the function. That is actually basically like writing def to define a function, but Godot uses func. So we're going to say we're defining a function, and we're going to make the start at function. And this is going to work with a direction and a position. So just like the one above, we were setting the position, our cannon is going to give us a place to start. And it's going to tell us what direction are we facing. And this little guy here is going to rotate, and I'll show you that when we get to the cannon video. But it's going to set our direction, and then it's going to tell us where we're at, and then we're gonna try and fly across the screen with those two pieces of information. So we're going to need to get from the cannon, we need to know what our rotation degrees are. And again, I know I haven't talked about that, but we'll talk about that in the next video. And we need our position. Oops. We need our position, and that's going to be set by position. And then we haven't made this yet. We're going to make it here in just a second. It's called velocity. And this velocity is actually going to be our vector 2, which is that x and y that we were talking about. So let's go ahead and come up here and make this. Well, you know what we can do? We can just change this pose to vector or velocity. Our velocity is now a vector 2, if I could spell I before that. So here's our velocity, so this is here. I didn't spell it right down there either. Okay, so there's our velocity. It's a vector 2. And then we need to know how fast are we going to fly across the screen. So instead of using this position X, we're going to say speed, so we can like adjust it. And I'm going to set this at 200. I've already tested these numbers, so it's kind of like cheating, but hey. So 200. We don't need this ready function yet. We're just going to skip over that. That's what pass means. And we don't need this here, and we don't need, we'll fix this here in a second. Okay, so our cannon is going to tell us what direction we're facing. What direction are we facing? And where are we? What direction are we facing and where are we? And then this is going to start moving in a certain, start moving somewhere. Let's just say it like that. Start moving somewhere. Okay, so we haven't decided what direction, where, and everything. So we want to move at a certain speed, which is going to be our X. And we're going to have no Y. We're not going up. It's the bullet's going to go in a straight path. Okay, so there's our speed. And now we need to also tell it what direction are we facing. So rotated. I know we haven't dealt with any of this, but until you deal with it one time, you can't. This is just your first time dealing with it. So how fast are we going? Well, we're going 200. That's our speed. And we can adjust that just depending on what your turret needs to do. And we're only going in one direction. We're only going to the right, just to make it as simple as possible. And then we're going to decide what's our rotation of the cannon. So if it's at 0, it's just facing to the right. Alright, so then we have that. This function is received from the cannon. This is information we get from the tower. Okay, cool. Now we want to update our position using this in basically the exact same way. We are going to say our position is actually equal to position plus our velocity times delta. And delta is how much are we lagging. Are we lagging, or how fast is our computer running? That just makes it where everybody's stuff works the same. Alright, now if we were to run this, we would start out in the top left and we wouldn't move at all because we haven't given it any velocity at all. So I'm going to come up here to this velocity. I'm going to give it some motion. And you're going to see our projectile start and just move to the right. And you're going to barely see it at the top of the screen, just moving to the right. Now if I wanted to do that again, I could drag it down and we can watch it move across the front of the screen. That's where we're going to end the video here. I'll end up putting everything back centered, but this is the code that we're going to use. Hopefully it wasn't too complicated. We have everything we need right here. We're going to get this information from the tower, and then this is just going to tell us to move. Alright, I'll see you guys in the next video.